Hey, and welcome back to the Coco Nomad channel, where I talk about location and financial independence, share my tips, tools, and techniques for making a living and a life. And on this episode, I wanted to share something that I've seen a lot of other people do, and I haven't done in quite a while. I've never done in the YouTube format, but I used to do in the blog format, and that is share cost of living. I have been here living in Medellin, Colombia for about 7 months. Now, this is my third time here. But this is the longest time I've actually stayed at once. The first few times I stayed 3 or 4 months, and this time, because of the COVID-19 epidemic or pandemic, I've been here now for a few months longer than I normally stay. I usually cycle in and out and go to Mexico or some other places this year, but all those plans were ruined. So I'm gonna sort of reset, use this as my home base for the rest of the year, probably, and then see what the landscape for travel looks like in 2021. So let's go ahead and get started though with my cost of living. So the first expense that I wanted to share is one that people don't typically start with, and that is food and dining, because for me it is the most expensive item I have for the average of the last 6 months, and that is $605, which is a lot. But a couple of things to think about here in that it's not really inexpensive to eat here at all. The caveat being if you eat locally, and that is not something I've been doing much of lately. In fact, because we are on or have been on various states of sort of quarantine, I don't go out much. I do go to the grocery store occasionally, but in my apartment here, my little unit, I don't have a huge kitchen. I have a small kitchenette, and even though there's a kitchen downstairs, I don't really use it, which is odd. I take a lot of cooking courses, and then I don't cook. But for me, I order a lot on Rappi, and I order a lot of non-Colombian food, and not just Western food in terms of like American food, like wings or hamburgers and stuff like that, but I eat a lot of, there's a couple of local Korean places that I really like. There are a couple of Thai places, and there's an Indian restaurant. And so I pretty much frequent those a lot, and they tend to be a lot more expensive too. So in combination with eating those, I also have purchased wine, beer, scotch. I bought scotch once, and I did some infusions with whiskey and rum. So, and I bought some really, really good stuff. I didn't buy like cheap stuff. So that also knocked the monthly average. So I'm saying that to say, if you don't eat out, if you don't drink, you could easily cut what I spent by about 50%, like no problem. Like you shouldn't have any issue at all. So just keep that in mind when you're comparing these numbers. I like to make sure that I kind of let people know like how I'm spending that money in that particular case, so you don't get the wrong idea about how much it actually costs to eat here. It really doesn't cost that much. I'm not kidding when I say you could easily do it for $300 a month, no problem. This brings us to the second highest expense that I have, which is lodging. I pay for this one room sort of studio style apartment in a Parta hotel, which includes all my utilities. It includes the internet. There's laundry facilities downstairs, have multiple washers and dryers, and really nice ones actually, and a double kitchen. So if I were into cooking in a common space, which I'm not, I would be able to cook downstairs, but I suffice with my microwave oven and a little toaster oven type thing and a fridge. That's about it. And my cost is $418.25 on average, and that's for the last 6 months. So not terribly expensive for what I'm getting. I'm sure I could do a lot cheaper if I wanted to go another route. I've heard of people spending $370 getting apartments with a lot more room, but then they're also having to separately pay for utilities and pay for internet, things like that. And I always like this place because it's really simple. There's weekly cleaning. I don't have to think about it. I can focus on my work. I can focus on content creation if I want to make YouTube videos or whatever. And I don't have to like sort of worry about any of these other things. So it really works for me in terms of focus. I have stayed in other places. Like I've had a much larger place. I had a 2-bedroom apartment in Poblado at first when I first came here this year, and that was nice. But I mean, it's just not something that I'm going to value that much, and I'm going to continue to pay that kind of price. And so I'm comfortable here. I like the neighborhood. I live in the area called Medellin, and it's just really sort of tranquil and not very busy, and I like that as well. Although there is some road traffic, but outside of that, it's relatively quiet, not a lot of activity, and I can go to the places when things are open, where they're the bars and going out and stuff like that, which I prefer. So that's the second category. Now for me, the third one this year is charitable donations. So I have a few charities that I support. I have some friends that run charities across the world, a few in the United States, and then in Thailand, and here in Colombia as well. And that comes out to about an average of $178 a month. So it's just something that, anything that's important to you, and this is important, those things the causes are important to me. So I tend to try to put my money where my mouth is, and that's why I do that. So it's a larger expense than probably, I mean, I don't think it's that large. But it, every little bit helps that you can lend to other people. So that's what I'm doing, and I would encourage you, for the things that you believe in and the things you support, or the people you support, if they're artists or creators or things like that you want to support, you can lump that in as well, however you want to categorize it. I mean, it's your money. I'm just sharing what I'm doing with mine. So that's number 4. Number 3. Number 4 is the software category, and that's where software and services. So I do have to pay for like hosting and a lot of other software services that I pay for on a monthly basis. And for me, that comes out to $134.52 a month. That one is a little bit higher this year because I switched some things. I have some new domains, and I've registered some new domains. I'm hosting more stuff because I'm trying to do a bit more in terms of like content creation. I plan to create some courses by the end of the year. So I'm spending a little bit of money up front this year to sort of get those things in place and to start doing those things. So typically my costs on the software and services side tend to be lower than $100 a month, but this year it's going to be a little bit higher on average. Next year it'll probably go back down to being like 75, 80 bucks, depending on what I'm still doing. Next up is electronics, and electronics is something that I try not to spend a lot of money on. As much as I really love technology and I use it for my job, I don't like to spend money on it. It's like, if I can get it for free, or I can get a donation, or like I can get like a developer version, like for instance I'd done with an Apple Watch and an Apple TV before, like I'm all for it. But this year is a little bit higher because I did have a couple repairs to my laptop. I got a new laptop battery because the old one died basically. I bought a new external drive, and I got these handy dandy AirPods that I really like. My last pair died after a couple of years, so it was time to upgrade, and it took me a long time before I would plunk down any more money to buy a new pair, even though I think they're great. It was just something that, again, I'm just not a fan of spending a lot of money on electronics and stuff like that. So that total was $85.75. Next year is definitely going to be higher because next year for me is an upgrade year. I will be getting a new laptop. I'm getting a new phone, probably getting a new iPad as well. So I'm really going to get hit in the wallet. And I try not to do that too often. That's usually like every 4 or 5 years now. And this will be pushing it. So not looking forward to the expense, but I am looking forward to getting the new toys. So I don't like to spend the money on the toys, but I do like to have them. The next category is education. And here is primarily just one thing. I still take Spanish lessons because I want to improve my speaking, both formally and informally. So I have online classes I take with a teacher in Guatemala. And the lessons come out to about $68 a month. I take weekly lessons that are 1 hour, and it's basically conversation and grammar and basically dialogue and writing about current events and things like that, sort of, keep me using different types, both formal and informal Spanish. And it's been helping a lot. I mean, I'm here in Colombia, but because we're on quarantine, I don't really get a chance to go out a lot. So it's really been helping, other than talking to the people in my building, half of which I don't think are native Spanish speakers. So again, it's like sometimes Spanish, sometimes English, and not always native. So it's really nice to have that accessible that I can use every week and have that lesson and improve and have an opportunity no matter where I am because they're online. So I'm not even depending on having the Spanish speaker teacher locally. So if I change locations, it doesn't really matter as long as I have a decent internet connection. So that's education. The next up is one that usually for a lot of people would be a lot higher. You'd get there a lot sooner in terms of the price, and that's insurance. So I have insurance through a company called Safety Wing, which specializes in travel insurance for digital nomads. And it's basically travel and health insurance as long as I'm outside of my home country. I think I only get I think I get up to 30 days of coverage if I were to return to the United States. I have to double check the policy to make sure that's the right number of days. But that policy costs me $60 a month. So it's basically really in the truest sense just an insurance policy in case something happens. It covers me for a lot of activities, not necessarily all the extreme activities like boxing. It doesn't cover. So like if I spar and as has happened to me, I've like got cut an eye or something like that. Just bandage it up, just roll with it, or pay out of pocket, which isn't terribly expensive here. Probably wouldn't cost me that much if I had to get something that was minor as that taken care of. I wouldn't even go to the hospital unless I needed stitches. I didn't. It's kind of healed up really well. Actually, can't even tell. I got socked really well. Can watch for the hook. But anyway, it's a reasonable cost, and I haven't had to use it. But again, it's just good to have. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. So there's that. So the next category is woefully low this year, and it's again because of COVID-19, and that's the travel category. I've only spent on average $40.80 per month on travel this year. Now, even with that, included in that price is a credit for a plane ticket that I did not get to use earlier this year. I was supposed to be headed out to Mexico a few months ago in April, I believe, and because of the pandemic, the flight was canceled. It didn't happen, and we don't have any international flights unless you're doing the humanitarian flights, which are really expensive. And those are going back to the States, which I have zero interest in doing. I was going back to Mexico. I was going to go back to Mexico City, hang out with my friends, and enjoy some street tacos, which I really miss. But that's on hold. I also had plans to do a cruise across the Atlantic Ocean and then do a train from Russia to Mongolia, all of which was kaput this year. So, and that really was going to boost up the travel budget this year because just the tickets alone total like $3,600. So I'll have to wait until next year to see what's going to happen in terms of travel. I really had been spending a lot of time sort of slow traveling, only been to a couple of countries in the last year and a half to 2 years. And I was looking forward to sort of getting back on that more steady, frequent country jaunt for a couple of months, really jumping around Europe for the summer, and then taking the train to see Kazakhstan and then Mongolia, and then touring around Southeast Asia, and then finally ending up in either South Africa or Tanzania. But again, it's out right now. Got to wait till next year and see what happens. I may just go directly to to one of those countries, like directly to Portugal and then directly to Tanzania or directly to South Africa. I don't know. Everything's still up in the air. There's so many unknowns. I'm just focused on like staying safe and working and getting as much as I can get done before the end of the year and just pushing it out of my head until next time. So travel budget, extremely low this year, but much like my electronics budget, it's probably going to be really, really high next year. Next up is local transportation, which is something, again, that's usually a bit higher. This month, this year, I've only spent on average $3.16 a month, and that is super duper low. And that's because normally I would be taking Ubers between here and maybe Poblado to go out and hang out and party, go to clubs and stuff with friends, hang out at bars and whatnot. I did almost none of that this year, and even when I did a little bit of that earlier this year, I was living in Poblado, so I just walked. I don't take the metro here really in Colombia. It's something I do all the time in Mexico, not because there's a problem with it. It's actually really, really good. I just tend to walk in the areas that I live in because I live pretty close to Laureles, and I can just walk there. So I tend to, even at night, if I was going to the party scene there, 70, I would just be walking there and walking back because safety is not an issue, particularly for me. I don't feel any like problems walking around late at night or anything like that. So and I prefer to walk if I can. Most places, most countries, if I can walk, I'll do that versus having to go across town and catch a cab or catch an Uber or catch public transportation. In some cities like Mexico City, that's not really practical, so I do it, but it's incredibly cheap there as well. But this year so far, super duper cheap, $3. not bad. And the last category I have is entertainment. And the total I spend on entertainment is an average of $37 per month. And that includes my Amazon subscription, HBO, and Netflix. And I keep saying to myself, I'm going to get rid of the HBO subscription after a bunch of series ends. I said that after Game of Thrones. I said it again after Westworld. And now there's a Lovecraft series that's coming on that's produced by Jordan Peele. So now I'm going to wait until that's over. And then I'm sure there'll be some other show. I'm not sure I'm going to get rid of HBO. I keep saying I'm waiting for Disney, but I don't think I can get Disney Plus outside of the US. So I may just stick with the services that I have and just accept the fact that I do watch enough of it to justify it and leave it at that. Netflix is a mainstay though. I mean, I've had it for years and I probably won't be getting rid of that. So, and it's not terribly expensive. I mean, $37. If I were to cut an expense somewhere, I could look somewhere else. Like food, eating out would be the first place I would go and just like cut down on the eating out before I would think about cutting the expenses for the entertainment. So let's get to the total. So the grand total for me per month on average is $1,630. Again, really easy if I wanted to knock out probably 35% of that just in that food area alone, because there's a lot of spending going on right there, and I could pinch some more pennies. It's just, I don't know, it's like you spend the money on the things that you want to spend the money on. I don't feel like I'm going super overboard. I will probably rein it in over the next couple of months, just because I think I've reached a point with this quarantine that like I don't need the comfort food anymore. I'm like just accepted the current state of affairs and get back to maybe eating a little bit better and eating a bit healthier and whatnot. I mean, not that I eat terrible, but I do. I eat horribly. Don't let any videos you see of me like working out or whatever fool you. My diet is trash. So, but it's not terribly expensive. It'll probably be higher in the next year as I move to some other places. Colombia is one of the least expensive places I've lived in the last 5 years. Probably only eclipsed by Thailand. Thailand is like mega cheap. I mean, I could eat on the street all the time. Really great Thai food. Had a great apartment and still spent easily less than $1,000 a month, like without even trying. It's just that inexpensive to live there. So, but this one's not bad. This one's closer on par with what I've spent in Mexico. Mexico's about the same. I probably spent about between $1,500 and $1,600 per month. The food situation being the exception. It's a little bit cheaper because I do tend to make salads and do things more at home, or just eat street tacos, which tend to be a lot less expensive even in Mexico. So, but my rent was a bit higher, so I was paying a little bit more on average per month for my apartments in Mexico City and Playa del Carmen than I have here. So it's just kind of give you an idea of what it's like if you want to have some idea. Now, I am single, don't have any kids, don't have any pets, so that is definitely helping. If I did, I would shift some things around, and I'm sure I would spend a lot more, particularly for the apartment. I'd have to have more room, but I don't have to worry about that. So hope that helps. Click like and subscribe if you want to see more videos, or comment about some things that you want to see. If you have any other questions about life in Colombia or life in some other countries that I may have been in, or just travel in general, or making this whole remote work life thing go. Okay? Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you next time.